We are back here at Bit Dodgy In It with Pete Renn. That's him, somewhere over there. And I'm Jason Hewlett for another episode dissecting and discussing alleged accounts of paranormal activity, hauntings, Bigfoot sightings, ghost stories, you name it. We talk about it here on Bit Dodgy In It. I'm Jason Hewlett.
All right, mate. This month we're
What?
This month we're leaving the world of ghosts and hauntings behind us as we dive into the realm of myths and monsters and take a good hard look at the Patterson-Gimlin film.
And not just a good hard look at Patterson-Gimlin, but about a month ago, Peter, what was the guy's name? Rowan Chung actually posted on Twitter a look at the Patterson-Gimlin film through an AI lens that basically stabilized the footage. The famous clip of the Sasquatch walking and turning and looking behind. And now that people have seen it without it being blurry and shaky like every other Bigfoot video around, they figure that it looks even more, many people are saying it looks even more like a dude or dudette in a ape suit. Now you watched that video, yes?
Yeah, I watched it earlier on today, and I'm going to put this bluntly, and we'll probably get shot down on it and stuff like that. But even the original one, to me, just looks like a guy in a suit walking along, and I didn't have to stabilize the footage on it or anything like that. I don't see any different characteristics from a human walking along to what that video illustrated, and having the image stabilized, obviously stopped it moving around and stuff like that, solidified it more for me, more than anything else. That's my kind of stance on it.
Yeah, I was always like you. I was a bit skeptical, of course, of Patterson-Gimlin, which is like the benchmark for Sasquatch. And I mean, and back in when it was made, not made, but shot back in 1967 and then revealed to the public, that looked pretty convincing. But as time has gone on, and I'm someone who loves the concept of Bigfoot, the film just doesn't quite hold up as well. And putting the AI lens on it where it really stabilized it, that just show that even more, not so much more so, it just made it clearer.
Clearer,
to me, for lack of a better word.
Clearer that it's fake. Can't say any more than that. I mean, we've delved into on our other show. We actually did an episode on Bigfoot hunting, and it is represented in different cultures in different ways, like Bigfoot, Sasquatch, or whatever you want to define it as. And I'm not immediately saying for 1 minute that there isn't anything like that out there. For me to say that would be naive, especially being a ghost hunter and stuff like that. But this particular footage was the brownie point on that was that it was released at the time before Photoshop on any kind of editing software was kind of accessible at that time. But I can't honestly believe that this footage has been going for this amount of time without people publicly shutting it down as being fake. As a paranormal investigator myself, they should be, with the footage and stuff like that. They were Bigfoot hunters, so they did go out specifically to look for Bigfoot. They should be telling us why that they believe that this is Bigfoot, rather than just showing us footage. But they should be telling us why the characteristics are different from a human walking along, and ticking all those boxes first before they say that here's the footage of allegedly Bigfoot, and all we've got is their accounts that it wasn't them, which in this day and age, everyone's a lot more skeptical now than what they were before.
Well, that's kind of, and that's kind of the stance here. So why don't we kind of backtrack a bit into the film and talk about the story behind it? Of course, the 16-minute short film was apparently shot on October 20th, 1967 in Bluff Creek, California. And it's what turned Bigfoot into a legend and international icon. Backtracking a bit to the story behind the film, on the day the film was shot, Bob Gimlin was a half-day's ride from any signs of civilized life with his friend Roger Patterson. Patterson was a devout Bigfoot chaser who had just self-published Do Abominable Snowmen of America Really Exist? Patterson had also begun filming a pseudo-documentary about cowboys, an old miner, and an indigenous American tracker on the hunt for Bigfoot. When he ran into Gimlin, he told them he had heard about a set of unidentifiable footprints that were found in Northern California. He asked Gimlin to saddle up and help him find the beast responsible. Gimlin agreed and soon found himself on a horse in Bluff Creek. Patterson rode ahead of him with the reins of his horse in one hand and his 16-millimeter camera in the other, so already ready to shoot. As is often the case with such things, Patterson had put the camera back in his shoulder bag when the horse began to whinny and a pungent stench filled the air. The horses kicked in fear, and the two men spotted a massive 6 to 7 foot beast walking about 25 to 100 feet away. That's a pretty big variable in distance. Patterson dismounted and grabbed his camera. He ran ahead and crouched to stabilize his shot and began recording. Gimlin was right behind him with rifle in hand. The men watched as the creature gave that now infamous glance at the camera and walked off. The sighting lasted only 59.5 seconds. Now, you kind of already shared your thoughts on this, Peter, but how does this sort of sit with you when you kind of hear the stories behind
it? There's a vast difference between 25 to 100 feet.
Yep.
And with the footage that they've shown, with the camera ability back in that particular era, they're a lot closer than a maximum 100 feet away. Like there was no zoom back then that could have zoomed in 100 feet to that quality back then. And either way, I mean, there's more reasons why there's more reasons why they wanted this to be real than what they were just kind of trying to find evidence and kind of, footprints and stuff like that. Like sounds like, one of them released a book and they were trying to push that, and it ticks all the boxes. And we were suspicious where all of a sudden they find footage like this, and there hasn't been a single video released to date that matches the clarity of what this alleged footage is supposed to be. Like there's bits and pieces where people see things in shadows and stuff like that, and I don't put a lot of credit into that, but with film footage, nothing else has ever come close to that. And was it a fluke, or do you think that there was just a guy in a suit?
Well, I mean, let's take a look at that. What you were kind of saying, there is claims that Patterson staged the entire incident because he was unable to get proper financing for his other Bigfoot projects, like the documentary he was kind of making. The infamous footage did make Gimlin a good amount of money, though, and Patterson made a deal with the BBC to buy rights to use his Bigfoot footage. Many have dismissed the film as a prank featuring a man in an ape suit, as we've talked about. These claims were boosted when a costume designer named Philip Morris claimed in 2002 that he sold Patterson the ape-man costume used in the film. Just a few years prior to Morris's claim, a man named Bob Hieronymus, say that 20 times fast, said Patterson hired him to wear the costume and that he showed the suit to a few friends at a Yakima bar before Patterson and Gimlin came by to retrieve it. Have you ever heard any of these kind of criticisms, like specifically, Peter? You've already said your own skeptical thoughts, but what about, have you heard these kind of claims before at all?
No, I'll be honest with you, I've never dug too far in research about it, but that just solidifies for me, it being fake. It's just a guy in a gorilla suit, which it does look like, plain and simply. Like there's thousands of costumes that have been, if you go on Amazon, that look exactly like that. And when you actually look at the footage of the person walking along as well, it doesn't look like the suit's very it doesn't look like skin, because there's like flappy parts and stuff like that. So even that piece as well wasn't done too well. But I guess because they were the pioneers of this kind of thing, they were the pioneers of this kind of evidence at that time, no one dared question it, because it's, back then, I guess no one even thought about questioning it, because it was, it was the first of its kind.
Well, and we got to, people forget that, like when they talk about things today, like you got to look at it through the lens of the 60s and how different technology was. Like we didn't have phones. We didn't have phones you could carry around with you that had cameras in them. It was a different time, and people were, I think, were made more willing to believe something shown on film like that.
It was, and then, especially with the BBC getting hold of it as well, like people, and even to this day, people believe what they see on TV, and over time, people realise as well over the past few years that not what a lot of things that come out of the media is not exactly true, and BBC were just trying to get it out there and circulated worldwide, and that added a feather to their cap, because once the BBC got hold of it, it went out to the world, and everyone was talking about it, and it gave it that boost. But now, even if we were back in 2023 and you and I got dressed up in a gorilla suit, no one even batter an eyelid, and it would just be put to the bottom pile. We'd probably make local newspaper, but it wouldn't go as worldwide as stuff like this.
No, and it's funny, then you were talking about, when how the BBC got a hold of it, everyone, kind of really believed it. I think back, of course, to the Ghost Watch BBC special that came out in Halloween, and was it 92? And that everybody, you were there when it broadcast, everyone believed it, and someone even killed themselves over it.
Yeah, that was a very delicate time for me. I don't want to talk about it. I was over at my friend's house at high school, and the bit where they were banging, she was tied to the radiator or something like that, and you could hear the banging on the radiator. My friend's dad was actually upstairs, and he started kicking on the floor when that moment happened, and I froze in fear. Like, I honestly, it definitely spooked me up. And then obviously a few days later, the BBC announced that it was actually staged, and it was actually a script show. But it was very memorable. It was good though. It was very it was good at the time, especially for televisation in the UK. That because we have a thing over there called 9 o'clock watershed, where everything at a certain rate has to be after 9 o'clock, and that was I think that was televised earlier, so it was kind of cool.
I've watched it, and it's a prime example of how with some good planning you can come up with a really convincing hoax.
Yeah, it's good. It was good. It was good at the time, that's for sure.
When it comes to the Patterson-Gimlin saga, Patterson himself passed a lie detector test given by a reputable New York City polygraph expert in 1968. He never wavered from his account, even on his deathbed. Gimlin has never wavered from his story either. He tells it vividly, and even said he regrets the day that brought him and his family so much fame. In fact, Patterson had allegedly squeezed him out of any profits when he took the footage on tour. Gimlin ultimately sold his ownership share of the film for less than $10. What does that tell you, Peter? Like, just adds even more insult to injury almost.
It does. It sounds like a bitter partnership there, that's for sure. It doesn't change my opinion on the validity on it. And by the sounds of it, they're out for cash grab on it. And there's a lot of footage of the paranormal that people have held closely to themselves, and haven't put out to media or anything like that, because it's personal to them and stuff like that. But they, it ticks all the boxes with me, what they were trying to do with the book, and they were struggling with funds and stuff like that. And wow, then behold, there was they got footage of Bigfoot. It just and it, like I said earlier, it should be they should be telling us why it wasn't Bigfoot. Sorry, why it was Bigfoot, rather than the video footage. They should be, there should be a detailed explanation why that they feel it wasn't a guy dressed up in a suit. That they should be doing as an investigator to us.
No, I agree.
Like, so what makes that video footage different to a guy dressed up in a gorilla suit? That's
And
it.
explain why. Yeah.
Yeah. Explain it to me, and then perhaps I will take a step back and be a little bit less skeptical and stuff like this. But you don't just say here's a video but it's it's real. Give me your money, kind of thing.
It's always the give me the money part that kind of makes it even more skeptical, doesn't it?
But,
that wraps up this episode of Bit Dodgy, and we'll be back in 2 weeks with another exciting dive into the world of the unexplained. Until then, I'm Jason Hewlett.
and I'm Peter Renn. Stay spooky.